They handed me discharge papers on Veterans Day, right between the sheet cake and a lukewarm meatball sub. Name's Ellie Brennan, former logistics sergeant, still carrying a dented brass tag from my last real post. Ever seen a whole room change their tune after spotting a tattoo? Tell me what's the one mark no one ever asked you about. But never forgot, Ellie Brennan moved through Camp Ashton like a shadow, always present, rarely seen, and never asked about. At 00600, the motor pool bay lights flickered to life, soft and yellow against the low fog. Ellie's boots echoed on the concrete, slow and even as she unlocked the sliding metal door to Storage Bay 3. Frost rimmed the padlock. She pressed it open with a gloved hand, revealing a neat row of crates, tarps, and tightly wound coils of communication cable. She didn't sigh or grunt, only moved forward with the precision of someone who had long ago stopped rushing. Outside the base stirred reluctantly, the faint thrum of generators. A cough from the barracks. Somewhere across the gravel yard, a door slammed, and the smell of heating oil seeped into the salty air. Ellie moved among the crates without speaking. She scribbled notes onto a clipboard with a dull pencil and nudged heavy boxes into position using a rubber-soled foot. Her sleeves were rolled tight against the cold, but as she shifted a particularly awkward case, the right cuff tugged back. Just a little. Enough for a glint of black ink to flash on her forearm, sharp, geometric, neither ornamental nor casual. Then it was gone again, beneath the fabric. Rachel Maddox paused at the bay entrance, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "Ma'am," she offered quietly, stepping in. "Sergeant Hale said to come help with the resupply. I figured maybe I could help you with the heavier ones." Ellie didn't answer at first. She glanced over, eyes unreadable, then nodded once. Maddox, grateful for even the smallest acknowledgement, stepped forward and lifted a crate marked Field Radios. As they maneuvered it into place, Maddox's eyes darted to the faint ink she'd glimpsed earlier. Her mind itched. Not flowers, not tribal, not military rank or unit code. She looked away before Ellie noticed. Footsteps approached from the side, two Marines in untucked uniforms and half-zipped jackets. Ortega yawned loudly. "Bay 3. I thought this was Brennan's dungeon." Voss smirked. "The mute legend herself. Heard she ghosted a whole unit down in Georgia. Or was it Tennessee? Either way, she don't talk for a reason." Ellie continued stacking crates as if she hadn't heard. Maddox shifted uncomfortably, but Ellie's silence was a shield thick and familiar. By noon, the fog had lifted, and the base glinted under a tired sun. Maddox grabbed her field jacket and headed off on foot down the narrow paved road to Sally's Grill. The sign still leaned to one side, and the porch light buzzed despite the daylight. Inside, warmth and the smell of bacon fat clung to the walls. A tinny gospel tune warbled from an old tabletop radio near the register. "Morning, sugar," Darlene called from behind the counter. "You're from Ashton, right? The quiet one. You met Miss Brennan yet?" Maddox hesitated with the coffee pot halfway to her cup. "Yes, ma'am," she answered softly. "She helped me with some logistics today." Darlene nodded like she'd expected that. "She don't say much, but she's sharp. Been coming here for years. Tips even when all she orders is black coffee." Maddox took a booth by the window, journal in hand. She jotted a note with the corner of her sleeve pulled down tight. That mark. It wasn't a regular tattoo. It looked like a message. Maybe a code. Not just ink. Back at camp, the day drained away. Ellie sat alone near the edge of the motor pool, her silhouette framed against the low orange glow of security lamps. Maddox, on the far side of the quad, paused under a lamppost. She didn't approach, just watched the shape of Ellie's form as she lifted a generator cover, adjusted wires, sealed it back up. The sleeve rode up again only for a moment. The tattoo was clearer this time. A phoenix, maybe, but built from angles and loops, more cipher than myth. Maddox blinked, burned the shape into memory, and pulled her phone from her pocket. Back in her bunk, while the rest of the barracks drifted into quiet phone calls and half-whispered conversations, Maddox curled beneath her blanket and tapped her screen. She drew a rough sketch of the tattoo, using her finger lines intersecting, rising, curling inwards again. Before lights out, Maddox sent a text to a Naval Academy contact. Ever seen something like this? She draws it from memory. No one remembers the beginning of a rumor, just the shape it takes when it settles into truth. The wind at Camp Ashton came down sharp from the coast that morning, knifing across the drill field like it had something to prove. The cadence call snapped like dry rope in the air, but Ellie Brennan moved in silence, scaling the tower's rope faster than anyone else. Her boots hit the sand with barely a sound. No one clapped. No one even nodded. From the edge of the field, Maddox watched. Not just the climb, but the way Ellie's shoulders squared when she walked back to formation, like she expected nothing from the world, and was rarely disappointed. Later at breakfast, the mess hall buzzed with metal trays and powdered eggs. Ortega leaned over his coffee, voice low, but not low enough. "So she froze, right," he said. "Georgia 2020. Team's halfway through recon and she just stands there. Can't speak. Whole op falls apart. One guy never comes home." Voss shook his head slowly, like someone who wasn't there but liked to pretend. They didn't even charge her. Just moved her out. Buried the file. That's why she never talks. Can't face it. Across the table, Maddox poked at a biscuit. Her stomach wasn't in it. The story had too many gaps, like a puzzle someone forced together with the wrong pieces. The more they talked, the more rehearsed it sounded. That afternoon, she found a quiet corner of the base archive room, a terminal tucked between fire codes and dusty manuals on satellite uplinks. The cursor blinked back at her. Phoenix Unit Tattoo, Silent Deployment, 2020, Georgia. Unregistered female staff logistics operations. Nothing. She logged off and walked past the admin wing where Lieutenant Hale was mid-argument with someone about supply numbers. His tie was crooked eyes, tired. Maddox almost stopped him to ask, but the hallway was not the place. Evening came slow and gray. In the barracks lounge, sitcom reruns flickered on mute. A few soldiers dozed in socks or argued half-heartedly about football rankings. A portable radio by the windowsill played something old Glenn Campbell, maybe. By the time I get to Phoenix. Maddox sat in the corner chair, notebook on her lap. The sketch of Ellie's tattoo was sharper now. Lines more precise. Her hand remembered better than her eyes. Not guilt, she wrote. Burden. Maybe clearance. Maybe command. Definitely not cowardice. When the room thinned out, she wandered the hall outside the mailroom where humming fluorescent lights turned everything a little green. A bulletin board loomed on the left, missing pet notes, of community cleanup flyers, a faded poster for a veterans forum in Asheville. At the bottom corner, almost hidden beneath a curled edge, a symbol caught her eye. She stepped closer. There it was, the same angular bird, almost abstract. She snapped a photo. Back in her bunk, she forwarded it to James Reyes, her old dorm mate from the academy. He'd graduated a year early now, interning somewhere deep in naval records. She added a quick note. "Ever seen this before?" The reply came before lights out. "Where did you see this? That's above my level. Delete it." She didn't. Instead, Maddox stared up at the ceiling tiles, hearing the creak of footsteps overhead. A rustle of someone folding laundry. Her journal lay open beside her. Ellie didn't disappear, she wrote. She was buried. Outside, the wind blew harder. As Maddox walks back to her bunk, she passes the announcement board, Inspection General Royce Delaney, Nov 12. She pauses. Whispers, now that could change something. Some marks don't fade. They stay quiet until the right eyes see them. At Camp Ashton inspection, mornings always brought the same nervous energy boots scuffed against cement metal bunk frames dragged into alignment, spit-polished nameplates catching the brittle morning light. Soldiers darted back and forth across the parade ground. Collars straightened mid-run whispers of, "He's early today," trailing behind them. Ellie Brennan moved through none of this. At the rear of the base beyond the bustle storage bay, 3 remained quiet. Its metal door stood slightly ajar, creaking faintly in the wind that blew down from the hills. Inside, Ellie wiped down gear with short, controlled motions. An ammo box here, a flak vest there. The foam cleaner hissed lightly. Her hands worked in a rhythm only she understood. No one had summoned her for inspection. They never did. She wore the same crisp uniform as the rest, but her name never made it onto the clipboard rosters. She wasn't listed for parade formations. It was easier that way for the others, maybe, or for her. General Royce Delaney was not supposed to be walking alone. Yet breaking from his scheduled loop, he stepped off the gravel path and into the shadow of the motor pool boots, leaving clean tracks through the dew-damp earth. His aide had fallen behind, answering a call. Delaney, as always, trusted his own eyes more than paperwork. He moved with quiet authority, his gloved hands folded behind his back. As he passed the open bay, he paused. There she was. Not posing, not reacting, just working. Something about the curve of her shoulders, the stillness in her breath, tugged at a frayed thread deep in his memory. Ellie bent to lift a med pack from the bottom shelf. As she did, her sleeve slipped back. The tattoo caught the light. Bold and black, but aged, not fresh, not decorative. Tier 6. Desert Fall variant. The mark was quiet yet unmistakable. Delaney's jaw set. He stepped into the bay. Ellie heard him but didn't jump. She simply turned, eyes level, hands still. "Where did you get that mark, Sergeant?" he asked quietly. A beat passed. Her voice was low but steady. Tier 6. Desert Fall variant. 6 in, 1 out. Delaney didn't move for a moment. Then his fingers still behind his back curled into a slow fist. The leather of his glove creaked. He remembered. The file had come across his desk years ago, buried under red tape and 3 layers of clearance. A mission scrubbed from formal records. 6 operators, 1 survivor. No medals, no public mention. But that mark, only those who went knew it. And only 1 had come back. He looked at her again, not as an unknown logistics ghost, but as someone who had walked out of hell and asked for nothing in return. Outside the bay, a slight shift in gravel. Maddox, walking past at a distance, glanced toward the open door. She couldn't hear the words, but the stillness inside made her slow. The general's posture, taut, attentive. Ellie's face, unreadable. But something had changed. She could feel it. From her angle, she caught a glimpse of Delaney's face as he turned toward Lieutenant Hale, who had just jogged up out of breath and clearly unprepared for whatever was happening. Delaney's voice was low, deliberate. "I need her full record. Not the file you have, the black archive. Some secrets are written in ink. Others are buried in silence so deep even truth forgets how to surface." General Royce Delaney sat in his office, a mug of black coffee going cold beside him untouched. The ceramic read, "Retired means nothing." It had been a joke gift once. Today it felt like scripture. He unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk, one with a key only he held, and retrieved the thick black folder. The label bore no name, only a code and a clearance level. It hummed when he placed it on the wood, or maybe that was just the weight of memory pressing through its pages. Operation Desert Fall Variant. He opened it. 7 elite operators. A target extraction in disputed territory. 0 margin for error. Classified so deeply that even the award for valor had been redacted. 6 bodies retrieved. 1 woman returned alive, carrying the wounded intel officer on her back across miles of open desert. No transport. No air support. Just grit and fire. Ellie Brennan. He read on. Her debriefing. The forced silence order. The transfer to logistics. The rumors that grew like mold in a dark room. Shameful whispers assigned to someone who could not defend herself, not because she was guilty, but because she was silenced by the very mission that demanded her silence. Delaney closed the folder and exhaled through his nose, the breath slow and bitter. Minutes later, Ellie stood before him in the quiet of his office. She did not salute. He did not expect her to. "You were never meant to wear this shame," he said. She met his eyes. "It kept others safe." "That's not the same as justice," he replied. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of acceptance, not agreement. Meanwhile, across the bay, Maddox sat alone at a mess hall terminal, the cafeteria mostly empty except for a few soldiers pushing peas across their trays. She opened her personal folder and uploaded the saved clip, Ortega's offhand joke, Voss's muttering the stares Ellie endured that first week. No dramatic music, no commentary. Just the truth. She tagged it only with #BuriedValor and sent it to a closed veterans network. It spread. By late afternoon, the air had shifted. At the barracks, Ortega stood silent beside the soda machine, his face flushed with something deeper than embarrassment. Voss skipped dinner. A few of the younger Marines whispered awkward greetings when Ellie passed, unsure whether to apologize or vanish. In the mess line, someone left an extra pie on Ellie's tray without a word. She didn't touch it. Just looked at it for a moment, then passed it to Maddox. On the drill field, knots of soldiers stood less like cliques and more like witnesses, uncertain quiet. The chatter was not about football this time, but about her, and about them. Later, Delaney stood before a small group in the main briefing room. No press, no band, no ceremony, just a flag, a citation, and a correction. He cleared his throat. "This isn't an apology. It's a record made right." Ellie stood still, eyes forward. Outside, Rachel waited in the cool air, arms tucked into her sleeves. A group of veterans passed by, talking softly about Thanksgiving travel plans, empty chairs, and the ache of family lost and found. Her phone buzzed. She was one of ours. And they forgot her. James Reyes Naval Archives, the sun had just dipped low enough to bleed amber across the admin building's roof. Ellie emerged, her boots clicking on the concrete. Rachel stepped forward. "You going to show up for that?" Ellie didn't stop walking. She just said over her shoulder, "I already did. 2 years ago. No fireworks, no salutes. Just a small room, a few names, and the weight of what wasn't said for too long." The conference room at base headquarters was plain beige walls, 2 small flags, and a podium that had seen more PowerPoint briefings than commendations. But today it held something heavier. Ellie Brennan stood still in her dress uniform. Hair tied back, buttons gleaming, boots shined so precisely they reflected the overhead lights in small, perfect arcs. No one had told her how to stand for this kind of moment. So she defaulted to what she knew: straight spine, quiet breath, eyes forward. General Delaney stepped to the podium with a paper in hand. He didn't glance at the script as he spoke. His voice carried not for attention, but for weight. Sergeant First Class Eleanor Brennan for extraordinary bravery under conditions of extreme risk and for actions that directly led to the preservation of national intelligence assets and Allied lives, we formally award you the Bronze Star with Valor and the Defense Superior Service Medal. The room remained quiet. No applause. Just a shift in the air like a long-held breath being let go. Lieutenant Mason Hale cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Sergeant Brennan," he said, his voice rough, "I owe you a personal apology. I should have questioned what I heard. I should have looked deeper. I failed you." Ellie tilted her head slightly. Her answer was calm. "Then don't fail the next one." There was no pride in her voice, just instruction. She took the folder, tucked it beneath her arm, and walked out without waiting for dismissal. The hallway beyond was empty at first. Then slowly, a few figures came into view. Private Maddox stood at the front of a loose row of Marines, their faces uncertain, their posture imperfect. She lifted her hand in a clean, deliberate salute. No command had been given. No formation called. One by one, others followed Voss Ortega, and even a few names Ellie never learned. Silent, upright. Not ordered. Voluntary. Ellie did not return the salute. Instead, she placed her hand over her heart. That was enough. By dusk, the smell of roasting turkey drifted across the base. Sally's Grill had dressed up its windows with fake leaves and paper turkeys, the kind school kids colored in with crayons. Inside booths were filled with mixed groups, locals, off-duty Marines, and the occasional retired vet, who always came early and stayed late. A corner booth sat empty. A card rested against the napkin holder. Reserved for SFC Brennan. Always present. Ellie stepped in, letting the door chime close behind her. The room hushed only a moment, before normal resumed, forks, clinking jukebox low and warm with the sound of Stand By Me. She walked to the booth and slid in without fanfare. Heads nodded. A few eyes met hers, then looked away, not from shame but recognition. She didn't order. Moments later, a waitress approached. Not Darlene tonight, but a younger girl with careful hands and a nervous smile. She placed a slice of pumpkin pie on the table. Beneath it was a folded piece of paper. Ellie lifted the plate, gently unfolded the note. "Thank you for carrying what they couldn't." She folded the note again, placed it beside her plate, and picked up her fork. The bite was small, the crust soft. The room around her stayed warm, flickering in the muted light of gratitude and late November comfort. Outside, the wind shook a few stubborn leaves from the last oak on the lot. And inside, for once, Ellie Brennan ate in peace. Some stories don't need headlines. They just need a porch, a fire, and someone who listens without judgment. The porch of the transition center creaked under Ellie Brennan's boots as she swept the night snow into neat arcs. The farmhouse behind her breathed heat through its chimneys, one in the kitchen, the other in the common room where the fire never went out. Dawn had come, gently pale light stretching through the pine woods, softening everything. She tapped the snow from her shovel and leaned it by the door. Reaching into the mailbox, a rusted tin rectangle bolted crooked to the rail, she pulled out another unmarked envelope. No name. Just a folded piece of paper creased and handled many times. "We heard what they did. Thank you for not disappearing." She didn't smile, but her fingers folded the note with practiced care and tucked it beside the others in her coat. Inside, the smell of cocoa and wool filled the air. Old quilts hung over armrests. A log cracked in the fireplace. Two older veterans were already seated, one with a prosthetic leg he treated like an umbrella, the other flipping a worn paperback open and shut like a metronome. Neither looked up. Ellie entered with the same quiet pace she brought to every hallway, Every base, every fire-lit room where silence needed no apology. A knock came at the front. She opened it to Rachel Maddox, bundled in a base-issued parka, cheeks flushed from wind. Standing beside her was a younger woman, maybe 27-30 at most. Her coat sleeves covered her hands. Her eyes were blank in that way trained Marines recognized not emptiness, but weight too heavy to show. Rachel spoke softly. She didn't say much. But she read about you. Ellie stepped aside. The new girl hesitated, then entered. No questions. No clipboard. No forms. Inside, no one stared. The fireplace spoke enough. The girl sat near the hearth, fingers clenched in her sleeves. Steam curled up from the mug she held, but didn't drink. The fire painted soft light on the walls. A veteran next to her nudged a folded blanket her way, then returned to staring at the flames. Ellie moved without sound, seating herself beside the girl. She didn't speak at first. She simply rolled up her sleeve, slow, quiet, deliberate. The tattoo, sharp, black, unmistakable, caught the firelight. Angled lines forming a phoenix that didn't rise as much as endure. The girl stared, not with fear, with recognition. Ellie said, "Start whenever you're ready." Minutes passed, maybe more. Then a whisper. "They told me not to talk about what happened." Ellie nodded. "Good. You can talk about it here." No one clapped. No one leaned forward. But the fire burned warmer. Outside, snow continued to fall soft against the earth. Later that evening, when the others had gone to their rooms or settled into the rhythm of sleep, Ellie walked the snowy trail behind the farmhouse. It twisted through trees and ended at a wooden bench overlooking a frozen stream. She liked it here. No echo, no radios, no boots. Her phone buzzed. A message on the screen from a contact saved only as RD congressional hearing. "They want your testimony." She stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "Let the salute be enough." She didn't wait for a reply. Snowflakes drifted onto her sleeve, melting into the edges of inked lines. Beneath the fabric, the mark stayed unchanged, but what it meant that had spread far beyond any rumor. Back at the house, firelight danced against windows. Someone had added another log. Ellie turned hands in her pockets and made her way home. The snow kept falling that night, soft and slow, as if the world itself paused to remember a woman who once carried silence like armor. Not every battle leaves scars on the skin, some leave symbols misunderstood until the right eyes know how to see. Kindness, when given without demand or decoration, carries farther than any order ever could. And when judgment fades, truth can finally step into the light, not to be praised, but to be known. Somewhere someone is still walking through the cold, with something too heavy to name. If this story touched you, maybe keep a seat open just in case they find their way home.